I know a lot of people take credit for turning KTRK into the powerhouse that it is today. And
it's a sore subject with anybody who was there at the time, because we all knew that we put on a hell of a newscast. We were using a format that was the hottest format in the country at the time. It was developed by very smart programmers. We had a staff that was, Channel 13 in those years, to this day, had a staff that was just unbeatable. But Marvin, you could never say, well, we could do the same thing without Marvin. You know, you knew that a lot of the success of the program had to do with Marvin, and you were afraid that it was only Marvin. Mm-hmm. So it was a touchy subject to talk about. Like I said, when I used to kid that there was no validity to Best Little Whorehouse because there was no weatherman in it, that was part of the continuing controversy. I would say that Shara can vouch for this. During the entire, well, you were there in the 80s, right? You came in the 80s. From 1970, whenever the article came out in Esquire, was it? Or yeah, when the Esquire article came out by Larry L. King, Playboy maybe, yeah. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, from which the play was written and the movie and all that. That started drawing all the attention, and there was a period of several years, especially when the play was a hit on Broadway, where you would look over in the corner of the studio, and when you work in a television studio and there's a stranger there, you know it, you know, because it's the same group of 6 or 7 people in that room every afternoon. And if there's somebody there who doesn't have a role, you know it instantly, and you want to know who that is. You know, it's not a sniper or something like that. But we would look in the corner of the studio, and 9 times out of 10, when you ask who are they, they'd say, well, that's the staff of People. They're doing a feature story on Marvin this week, or those are the folks from the PM magazine in Cleveland. They're doing a feature on Marvin, you know, or those are the folks from some foreign country and they're doing a story on Marvin. There was a succession of people who came through covering Marvin as a news story. So it was hard to deny the fact that he was of paramount importance, and he thought he was imperative. He knew he was one of the primary reasons, and he was like Shara said, believe it or not, he was a humble guy, very shy, except when he was on, and when there was somebody around that wanted to see the Marvin Zindler action. But when he was just talking to us and things were going around and somebody would say something about it's all because of Marvin, he would always defer and say, no, you know, it's all, I never took credit for it. Oh, God.
Yeah, he would not take credit for it. But, you know, Marvin always felt like he needed to run everybody's life, too, though, for a really shy guy. I mean, he sat there and I'd be doing the news and he'd sit there and look at me in profile and I'd say, what, Marvin? He says, you know, if you would get your nose done, you would just have a really wonderful career. If you would just get your nose done. Well, he did that to me for 7 years. I went and got my nose done. I did. I didn't tell anybody at the time, but he knew it. It was all I could do to keep him from announcing it on the air. When I got engaged to my husband, Marvin broke the story before I told anybody. I mean, Marvin saw the ring on my finger, and he said he had to tell everybody. You know, when I had cancer, it was all I could do to keep Marvin from breaking my story. But this, I did learn from him on this. Marvin felt like the viewers took such a personal interest in all of us, and particularly in him, that he didn't hide it. I mean, when Marvin had prostate cancer, he went and showed his radiation, and he was really a role model for all of us in realizing that you can't expect people to sit out there and believe what you tell them is the truth if you're a phony. And you could say, argue all you want to, well, Marvin wore the blue glasses and he had the wig and he had the plastic surgeries, but he let everybody know that it was the blue glasses and the wigs and the plastic surgeries. So there really wasn't anything phony about it. It was just Marvin Zindler and the way that he was. But I will tell you this, we went out one Thanksgiving to serve Thanksgiving dinner, lunch, to a bunch of senior citizens. And the highlight of the party, we had a band that was going to play music for them. It was sort of the precursor to Marvin's Valentine's Day dance. And Marvin was there, and we decided, the bosses decided that Marvin should dress up like Santa Claus and come in and be Santa Claus. So we served everybody the lunch and their dessert, and then in comes, this important person, Santa Claus. And these senior citizens were not interested in the slightest about Santa Claus. And Marvin could see he was getting absolutely no attention. He jumped up, he stomps off, he comes back, he's taken off the Santa Claus costume and put on the Marvin Zindler costume, and he was mobbed. So I learned Marvin Zindler is bigger than Santa Claus in Houston, Texas.
That reminds me of, now you just brought up something. We're sitting at the desk one night. We couldn't hear commercials in the studio when we threw the breaks. We could just see them on the screen. And we saw on the screen they're running a commercial for what's the Tom Hanks movie about the Vatican?
The Da Vinci Code.
The Da Vinci Code. Running a story about Da Vinci Code, and ABC is doing a feature on Da Vinci Code on 2020. And they're running a spot for it. And somebody makes the observation, that's that Da Vinci Code movie. That's really got a lot of right-wing Christians upset because they think that is blasphemous, and the Catholic Church doesn't know how to handle it either. And so we get into discussion about the Da Vinci Code versus blah blah blah, and somebody says, well, it's selling really well, and somebody else says, yeah, but the biggest selling book in the every year is the Bible, and blah blah blah. And Marvin hasn't said a word until the right moment in the conversation, and he says, when Joe Agris put out that book about me, and Shara said, Marvin, you're the only man in the world who can take a conversation about Jesus Christ and turn it to himself in 45 seconds. But I was going to say that in this managing everybody's life, he constantly told me, I started losing my hair when I was, in my 20s. And Marvin finally told me one time, when I guess I was in my 30s, maybe almost 40, he said, you really got to get a hairpiece. Got to get a hairpiece. His wig man was Tom Magliero. He said, let me send you over to Tom Magliero. He can fix you up with one nobody will ever know. I said, nobody will ever know. I said, yeah, like they don't know you wear a wig, that? And he said, no. He said, perfect. Nobody will ever know. And I said, and anyway, he was trying to convince me that I could get off work on a Friday and go to work the following Monday morning with a full head of hair and nobody would. The last thing I'll say, talking about this sincerity business, it really gripes me if I ever hear anybody charge Marvin with being insincere, because that is so far from the truth. Now we will, let's give him the fact that he was a genius, a natural genius in self-promotion. Never took a course. God knows he never went to college to study it, but he was a self-promoter par excellence. He knew how to draw the media. The man had an innate sense of what people wanted and how to give it to them that was just hard to believe. But there was not an insincere bone in his body. And he would do some things that were quite spectacular, and somebody say, well, you're just trying to get noticed. No, he was not trying to get noticed. He really did want to get old couples who had been married 50 years together for a dance at Valentine's Day, because he knew they were lonely. So whatever you hear, don't anybody ever let you say, anybody ever say that there was a false bone or an insincere bone in his body. It wasn't there.